So, welcome back to the Future of X. I'm joined today by Aaron Birkby. Aaron is the CEO of Startup Catalyst, an entrepreneurship support program in Australia. Aaron, welcome. And could you give us a little bit of an introduction to the work that you've done over the past few years? You know, what Startup Catalyst is and how that work has evolved for you?
Sure, yeah, and thanks for having me on. So, the last couple of years, so most of my life, I've been a tech entrepreneur and got lucky enough to exit out of a couple of companies in 2012 and 2013. And so for the last 7 years, been playing around the startup ecosystem, running the Neuro Accelerator program for RCL here in Brisbane. Also invested in a couple of companies just enough to realise I was a terrible investor. And mentored and worked in a lot of the different hubs. And now get to be the CEO of Startup Catalyst. So for the last 3 years, leading groups to different international markets. So we take startup founders, corporate innovators, investors, policymakers over to place Valley, London, Israel, and this year into Hong Kong and Shenzhen. Sort of like a study tour, sort of like a trade mission, but very much focused around mindset shift. So our mandate is to get more Australian technology startup companies to actually be acting and thinking globally. So shift the pace at which they think, but also the scale at which they think.
Fantastic. That's such an important program. And I think there's so much interest in this notion of ecosystem development. But when we boil it down, what we realize is that it usually starts with the mindset and the motivation for people to work in different ways. One of the programs that I know you had some involvement with recently was something called Peak Persona. And I guess I'm interested in how all of these things intersect. Like, what have you learned over the years with respect to how people, whether they're entrepreneurs or just working in a company, are motivated to achieve these higher levels of performance?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. So Peter Ellis, who's the CEO of River City Labs, she and I co-founded Peak Persona, and it really came from two things. One was definitely demand-driven, but the second thing was realising that the last 7 years of us mentoring and working with startup founders and also with a lot of corporates around their innovation programs, most of what we actually spent our time helping people with was themselves. So there's no shortage of business advice, there's no shortage of business support out there and knowledge, but really what holds most of us back is actually our mindset, it's our internal thinking. And exactly like you just described, I think often we forget to actually, or maybe we're just not aware of our purpose. We see this with a lot of founders where they've started a business and at the moment, there's a lot of cheerleading around being an entrepreneur and being a founder and forming a startup. But people get sort of caught up in the hype and they don't take the time to actually understand their own purpose in life, but also what's their goal? What does success actually look like for them? And so what we designed with Peak Persona were online programs to actually help founders around sustainable high performance. Because the other part of we're seeing there's a lot of mental health issues. In fact, the leading cause of death in Australia under 40 is actually suicide. And for entrepreneurship, we have a high rate of mental health issues. But we also realise that there's a lot of treatment side of mental health, but very few people are actually upskilling around preventative measures. So how do we actually train humans to be high growth so that they can grow as fast as they're building their companies and that learning curve that they need to be on?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I think there's a perception in the world that there's a predisposition to high performance or that high growth potential that is exclusive to quote unquote entrepreneurs. I don't necessarily think that that's true. How do you see perhaps those learnings being applied to people who working in a company, they're an employee, they're working for a big company or maybe a small company, it doesn't really matter, but they don't consider themselves to be an entrepreneur. Is there still lessons learned for that kind of high growth potential there?
Absolutely. So the realisation over the last 2 years of running Peak Persona, so we put about 300 participants through now from 9 different countries. And originally we were focused on founders because that's the subset of humans that we know well. But we've had school teachers go through, dentists, lawyers, psychologists, school principals. There's even undercover officers. And it turns out everyone has these exact same issues. We all want to be better and we're all also going through typically something in our life at some point. So how do we actually upskill and train ourselves to to grow, to have this growth mindset. And what does that actually mean? And how do we have sustainable high performance? But as much as it's about performance, it's also about those negative times. How do we have the toolkit to deal with situations and conflict, but also uncertainty and ambiguity? So absolutely in the corporate world, we see this as well. And in fact, a lot of the demand now for what we're delivering is corporate intervention. As you know, a lot of corporates have very strong immune systems, and you try and affect cultural transformation, and a lot of the methods for that at the moment don't work. You actually need very systemic, systemized intervention that lasts beyond just someone coming in and speaking, for example. So yeah, definitely seeing this apply in all different sectors.
Yeah, so it certainly seems like the awareness of change is coming down into more of the practical habits and the mindsets and the things that you do every day, and those small changes that ultimately accumulate to become big changes over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it with my kids. I mean, you know, my son's been learning guitar and Krav, which is a form of Krav Maga, which is a form of martial art, and you see the incremental improvements over time. So I have a half-written blog post on why we need to teach our kids to be streakers, but this concept that you need to have streaks of doing things every single day consistently to build that pattern of behaviour.
Yeah.
Those little habits and routines.
Yeah, that's interesting. So as it relates to the future of work and perhaps high performance, peak performance, you know, how those concepts intersect, what do you see as the starting blocks? Like, where do people go if they want to get started on their own journey towards high performance and kind of shaping their own future of work?
Yeah, well, I think understanding the future. So, you know, we both work in this sector. We see the rate of change of technology, and with AI coming and all the talk about AI, I think that the skill sets around the soft skills around emotional intelligence and awareness are going to be more critical than ever in the future of work. So we all need to be investing in ourselves and our personal development in that space. I think the way you start is by reading, consuming, and really opening your mind to have a growth mindset where you can actually change, improve, understand, and then introducing methods of reflection. So a big part of our programs is actually end-of-day video reflections to a cohort of like-minded peers. And through that process, you're basically practicing vulnerability, you're practicing self-awareness, you're practicing gratitude, you're practicing reflective thought on your emotions to actually understand your triggers and deprogram them. So actually leaning into your emotions, leaning into sharing and being vulnerable. So if I had one tip for listeners, I'd say consume everything by Brené Brown. I think it's just being more aware of our emotions, and it's a key part of actually unlocking self and our potential.
That's amazing. Thanks, Aaron. And for anyone who's interested in learning more about what you do or the programs that you're running, how can they reach out? Where can they find more information?
Jump on peakpersona.com. So that's our primary sort of platform at the moment for this content. It also has an online community behind it that you can join and basically just be part of a peer group of other humans that are looking to grow and develop as well.
Amazing. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah, no problem at all.